I'll then go to Minister Al-Shwaha, Minister of Communications and Information Technology. We know that there is a lot of discussion globally, also among G20 countries on technology transfer, but also increasingly seeing that more and more countries understand that those that are on top of the new technologies related to the 4IR will also come out of this century as the most influential and prosperous countries. But at the same time, we also see very many important governance issues to this. You know, how to make sure that artificial intelligence and the new technologies do also work in the interest of humankind. And will you take up that torch during your G20 presidency?
Thank you, Borghi. Digitalization undoubtedly is the largest economic multiplier and social equalizer. It's projected in the next 5 years, it's going to be a quarter of the global output. And every technological change we have seen, it has been a net new creator of jobs. WEF projects it's going to be 58 million jobs. And that's why under shaping new frontiers, we need to steer collective effort. How we can come together because the prize is so big and the need is so urgent. And that's why we have, and we're going to go through a marathon in the next 10 months. Where the world is right now so polarized in the analog world, we need to come together in a digital fashion because there's growing inequality. We cannot celebrate here, Borghi and team, 50 years of the World Economic Forum, 50 years of the inception of the internet, yet half of the world is not yet connected. Yet half of the world does not have basic access to healthcare. In the kingdom, and I'll share with you an example, we have cracked the code on this 2 years back. We've launched telemedicine in which in 2019, we touched 1 million lives, out of which 10,000 were very critical. We're taking this right now to Africa, but if we do not have a standard language and a common framework, we're going to face issues similar to what we're seeing right now across the globe as we're hearing from the different stakeholders, where if you go from one state to another within the same country, you cannot employ telemedicine. Move on from policies to infrastructure. There's $1 trillion from the carryover presidencies worth of funding needed to connect by 2030. This is the moonshot that we're working even closely with WEF, with the International Telecommunication Union on closing the divide. On talent, 1 billion youth. Klaus yesterday spoke about it. This is something that we acknowledge because we have seen once you double down on youth, on women and technology, you see positive impact. And I'll share with you another example. Women participation in ICT, and Her Excellency shared it a little bit, jumped from 7% to 15%. And we have seen a positive correlation that our non-oil GDP grew double the base economy. So the base economy grew from a non-oil GDP by 3%, we saw 6%. So there's so much polarization today in the analog world, we cannot afford it in the digital. And that's why on topics such as AI ethics and trustworthiness, as we move from the 4th Industrial Revolution to the 5th Industrial Revolution, we want to make sure that this digital economy task force is historic.
Thank you very much, Minister. Just a short follow-up on your last point, that there is so much polarization in the analog world, so we cannot afford to have the same in the digitalized world. I think this is really very well coined and is important. But if you look at the reality, how concerned are you that this polarization in the analog world will also then lead to kind of a two-system in the digitalized world? Because we are seeing trade wars, we're seeing some steps in this direction, that we will have two different internets, things not being compatible. Can you fight this polarization in the digitalized world during your presidency?
We heard it today even in WEF from the who's who. There is indeed polarization, and we're steering this conversation towards consensus. So if I can boil it down, the 3 hot topics today that we're seeing is AI ethics, taxes, and cyber resilience. So on the ethics, there's 2 debates going on. Some folks that are pro-consumer, pro-privacy, and some folks that are pro-enterprise. But if we look at the intended use and the rights of use of data, there are cases where data can cure cancer, can detect early cases of cancer. And that's why we need to come to a consensus. And we're working closely with the Fourth Industrial Revolution Center, and the next meeting is going to be in Riyadh and in San Francisco, on how we can get collective effort on having a common set of principles and positions. If I go back to cyber resilience, this is a topic we need to take it heads on. Because if we look at the WannaCry issue of 2017, if only one bank shared that piece of intelligence that there has been a leak of some code to the shadow economy and to the dark web, we could have prevented WannaCry. And if I fast forward with quantum computing today, being able to de-encrypt in 5 to 10 years, every encryption that we know today, we need to revisit how we reinforce trust among governments and among businesses. Last but not least, if I talk about the different topics of policies, really, we need to be in a world where we innovate, then regulate. Over-regulation today has been hindering innovation, prosperity across the globe, and we're very committed to throughout this journey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was tempted a very short follow-up question before we go to His Royal Highness. In the platform economy, it's the tendency that the winner takes it all. And we see some of the big platform economies are not in Europe or in the Arab world. How are you planning also in Saudi Arabia to take your share of this? What kind of policy do you have for making sure that you don't lose out on the fourth industrial revolution? In addition, of course, to the Center for the 4IR that we're establishing together in Riyadh.
I think if you look at the early discussions, the number of references that we have for human-centric AI, human centricity in smart cities, and across the board, you will find it in the dialogue today in the Saudi presidency, and to give credit to the previous presidencies. And I think the World Economic Forum have teed that up beautifully today by talking that we need to move by just looking at total shareholder returns to total stakeholder returns with stakeholder capitalism. And I think that's a beautiful segue to have this dialogue towards the end of the communique.
No, thank you